Now we're going to code a fan start stop sequence the way I like to do them. So on the left hand side on StructureWare in the database, I created a new module, new folder with a new program in it called fan start stop and a handful of points. Occupancy from the schedule, supply fan command, supply fan request, supply fan state, supply fan status, and unit state. So let's get started. Again, this would typically actually be on a B3 controller, so and regardless, everything here is going to be a numeric, even though we've got mostly all binary points and two enum or multi-state data points. So, but everything in the program it's going to be numeric. Right. This is an input to the program. So is this. And so it looks like I did not screw up any of the names. I made them the same. Boom. Now we got all our bindings made between StructureWare and the program. Next, we're going to have something called rate, which is going to be a local variable, which I'll use to control the rate of execution in the B3 controller, since B3 controllers do not have this property nor this property. By the way, we haven't talked about this, but task 3 is the default task in the system for running programs. You could, and this is the associated execution rate for task 3, which is the default. You could set your program to a different task number in order to run your program faster or slower. However, B3 controllers do not have that feature, So if you want a way to control how fast you loop through every line in your program at runtime and execute, if you want to control how fast your program runs, then you in B3 controllers will need to do something like what I'm doing with this local variable called rate. Now from now on I will use parentheses because it helped me see things clearer, and if there is ever any kind of ambiguousness in the order of execution in when using multiple Boolean expressions, using parentheses will always straighten that out and will always give these Boolean compounded expressions the meaning that you intended. And essentially I recommend using parentheses when possible. So. Now it should become apparent that since digital values are numeric, 1 shall be the same as true and 0 would be the same as false. So very simple logic to start up your fan. It doesn't have a delay. We'll talk more about delays when we get to functions. Now I could do something like this. If TS is, remember that's the seconds, the time in seconds, it's more than 30, then run this code. Okay, so let's go ahead and do a little bit of debugging here for a second. Okay, now that we got everything where it belongs, let's see what happens. So TS here, it's not updating, but I believe if we refresh, here we go. Now we're more than 30, so we just had to refresh that. So here this TS, this statement operates as a time delay here, and this is saying for as long as you're on this line, as long as this time variable is not equal to 30, is not more than 30, then we're not going to pass down here. We're going to come back up, we're going to execute here, and then we're gonna evaluate this condition again. And now TS, maybe we started at 5 and then we looped here, and now we're at 15, and then we loop again, now we're at 25, and then we loop one last time, and now we were at 35, and now this becomes true, and we move on to the rest of our code. And then again we see how if unit state is not 1, okay, that would be true, and fan request is equal to 1, or occupancy schedule is equal to 1, then we would turn the fan on. Since neither of those two values are true, basically we jump this statement and we go right to the else, which then executes this right here. So now let's make our unit state 1. Alright, so now we have one more reason to jump to 0. So now let's see what happens if we so let's make this true. We are still not turning on the fan because unit state now it's 1, and 1, if you go up and look at the what the different states are for unit state, you'll see that 1 is actually off. So I always start my multi-states from 1 so that I can have 0 as a null or auto depending on the enumeration that I'm working with, but I always like to have 0 left as a placeholder if necessary.